Hey, welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. So this week we're talking about how Apple's self-driving car secrets were nearly stolen, and then secondly, Nintendo Switch running GameCube games using Linux. So let's go ahead and start with the first bit of news, where a former hardware engineer at Apple tried to steal some of their self-driving car secrets over to China. Now, this particular person, they have traveled back and forth between China before, specifically for family reasons, and then eventually they left their notice that they were leaving Apple. But the only thing is, they also wanted to leave with sensitive information off of Apple's databases and even some Linux servers as well, because Apple, like every other company, also uses Linux for a lot of their important things. And so this is something that I think a lot of companies, if you've ever worked at a big companies, there's this thing called an NDA, so it's a non-disclosure agreement. And so it's really difficult for you to keep these trade secrets under wrap. And then also the amount of information that's given to you. Now, with a company as large as Apple, they probably definitely have some of their information given to the engineers and other parts not known. Okay, that makes perfect sense, because with so many people working for them, it would be really not a good idea if they had all their sensitive information to one particular group or just a few individuals. And so even though they could have stolen this information, I don't think it would have seriously impacted Apple in a big way. However, this particular person was actually going to take this sensitive information to bring it to another Chinese company called X Motors. Let me see if I got that correct. Yes, X Motors. It was a car startup. And so if they actually had this information, it would have been very important to this company, even if it wasn't all the information. Now, the whole idea of an Apple self-driving car is something that I have mentioned before, and Apple is not the first company you would think of when it comes to self-driving cars. Most people would think of something like a Google or Uber or even Amazon, because Amazon does drones, and so it wouldn't be too weird for you to think that they would also be in the whole car or other types of transportation services as well. And so you could easily see where in the future, since the Apple brand is so strong, that people would not only want an Apple iPhone, Apple iPad, a MacBook Pro, but they would also want an Apple iCar. And probably true to form of Apple, it's probably going to have less features, but it's going to cost way more. And so these trade secrets, even though they didn't get out, we kind of see where Apple is heading. And the thing is, this particular individual, they were monitoring the activity, so they knew that he was downloading some sensitive information. And so it wasn't too surprising for Apple to discover that this was happening. And so eventually, whenever this person was at the airport, the FBI actually stopped them from heading over to China. And so that's what happened there. A little bit of I guess controversy and a little excitement when it comes to the technology industry, but all of this information is very important. You know, these trade secrets, even though it's not all of the information, if it could give a competitive advantage to any of these competitors, then obviously that's a good thing. And then if it's information coming from Apple, that's even a better thing. And so that's what happened there. So let's go ahead and get to the second bit of news, and that is the Nintendo Switch will currently run GameCube games using Linux. And the specific Linux distribution that is using is Laka. And Laka is actually a Linux distribution that's primarily made for game consoles. And what you would do is you would put this Linux distribution on your Nintendo Switch, and then you would actually use a GameCube emulator called Dolphin, which is a pretty popular GameCube emulator. I haven't tried it myself, but there's a lot of great game emulators for computers, like Dolphin for GameCube. There's also another one for Dreamcast. There's PlayStation 2 emulators. I even think there's a PlayStation 3 emulator. I'm not 100% sure. So this isn't anything new when it comes to the emulation scene. And so this is new because of the fact that it's on the Nintendo Switch. And Nintendo definitely does not like people trying to hack into their systems and use it for other purposes outside of their ecosystem. Now, I'm kind of like in the middle of this whole thing, because I love emulation. Okay, and there's definitely some legalities there, but in some cases, you know, there's no other ways that you could play these games unless you have the original hardware. And so I can't really say I'm for or against it, because in one case I understand that it is their property, it is their software and technologies, their IP and their games, so I definitely get that part. But in another case, I think about, well, you have the hardware available, right? And it's able to do all these other things, because if you think back towards emulation for game consoles. I remember doing that on the Xbox 360 where it ran MAME and many other emulators and did an awesome job. Even the PlayStation 2 and specifically the PlayStation 3, where originally you could actually put in a different hard drive and run Linux on it and still run PlayStation. And so I understand that they want to control their ecosystem. I get that. And there's also security purposes as well. But I'm thinking like, man, if you could do other things with it, you know, like with the PlayStation 3 is a perfect example. You could have been running Linux as your main computer, and then you could still have your PlayStation software on the other one. So it's basically like you are dual booting an operating system. And so you get a lot more uses out of it. And even at the same time, the PlayStation 3 was being used for other research as well, using Linux. In this case, you could definitely run the emulator for now, but knowing Nintendo, they're probably going to patch this up really quick. Okay, and so yeah, so anybody who has an old Switch, you know, you probably are not going to want to update your firmware or any updates, because more than likely that will block your ability to run this emulation, similarly to what Sony did with the PlayStation 3, where they block you putting Linux on it. And so that is it for this quick bit of news. First, with Apple's trade secrets for their self-driving cars, and secondly, with the Nintendo Switch currently running GameCube games using a Linux distribution and then an emulator on top of that. So if you had any thoughts on any of these pieces of news that I talked about today, or any other geeky stuff that you found interesting, be sure to leave that in the comments area below. And if you did get value out of these videos, be sure to subscribe, share, and like. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on another episode. Hey geeks, if you are a creative geek like me and you wanted to learn how to create content on YouTube and other places on the internet, then check out my Gold Content Creators Group, where you'll get access to 30 videos plus additional content for all the creative geeks out there. And the best part of it is, all of this is free. Simply head over to the link below, check out my page, and sign up for my Gold Content Creators Group. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com, and I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.